Hello and welcome to the show. Now, when Need for Speed was released last year, I was really rather critical of the game, and it was, well, quite well deserved, because in all honesty, it wasn't particularly good. Now, some people did try to defend it by claiming that, well, there were going to be updates over the coming months, and to be fair, they were free updates that might fix the game and help improve some stuff. It's a pretty weak defense. A good game does not require updates to, actually make it a good game. A good game is released as, a decent thing. Not talking about early access games, they're a different thing. This is a full retail release. Think of games like Trackmania Turbo, just came out. If that never gets another update, it'll still be an incredible game. There's plenty of games that I could list: Burnout Paradise, PGR 4, Dirt 3, Forza 4, or Forza 6 for that matter. If those games never had any updates whatsoever, they would still be fantastic racing games. So yeah, it is a pretty damn weak defense. However, I was curious to see, after many months, had Need for Speed actually improved any. Now, my main criticism of this game was the handling. The handling physics were not particularly good. I was hoping that the inclusion of a manual gearbox might help some of that. I can't understand quite why that wasn't a thing that was in the game to start with. It seems like a very peculiar decision, and certainly I've been playing a lot of classic driving games, and most of them have had the manual gearbox to start with. It still baffles me why that wasn't a decision, but we do have it now, and certainly it fixes one aspect. It fixes one thing, and that is the rather irritating game refusing to change down gears that would happen. Let's say if you ran a tad wide somewhere, just bumped a wall, lost a little bit of momentum, you might want to change down a gear to get... Oh, bloody hell. You might want the car to change down a gear so you can actually get some acceleration and whatnot, and the game wouldn't do it, or you come to a slow hairpin somewhere and the game get all unhappy with you. It doesn't do that anymore, of course, because now you can change the gears manually. That is a lot better, okay? That's got rid of that niggle. It's no longer a thing. I was kind of hoping that the manual gearbox would help me sort of feel more involved with the driving in here. That's not really the case. The main criticism I had with the handling was that it is so busy assisting you, that it's so busy it almost drives itself on here. I'd hope that the manual gearbox, would help you feel a little bit more connected to the cars, and that's really not the case. The problem is that it is still far too busy doing stuff with your car. Now, this Mazda I have at the moment is set up to be a drifty vehicle. It's got drift tyres on it. It's got the sliders tuned to make the vehicle slide around more. And that is kind of an issue with this game. It wants you to do lots of drifting on here for the events. That's fair enough. Problem is the handling is so awful when you have to try and get the cars to go sideways. Yes, you can get this 830 horsepower Mazda to slide without too much in the way of problems. However, it's what it does sort of after you've started it sliding, that's where we have issues. Because the game is so busy fighting you for control. As you're going sideways, the car will wibble and wobble. Sometimes you'll be coming out of a turn, want to be going in a straight line, and the car simply won't do it. It'll start continuing the slide. I've had times, I'm probably not going to be able to get it to do it now, but where you're coming out of a corner somewhere, and the car is busy trying to stay drifting. You want it to go in a straight line, and it actually crabs down the road. This Mazda does it a little bit. The Hunicorn actually really bad for it. It just crabs its way down the road. I've played many games. None of them fights you for control as much as this one does. I've talked about the terrible countersteer that goes on. I wasn't actually touched. After I initially tipped the car in there, I stopped holding the stick, and the game will continue to hold the angle for the wheels. I think it has changed ever so slightly a couple of aspects with the handling. It's the kind of going straight mid-corner where you lose control of the vehicle hasn't happened to me as much as it had previously. Now, I have been driving different cars. Maybe I've just got a bit better at the game. It does still happen, but it doesn't happen as much. Yeah, it's still a thing. It's just so busy trying to drive the cars for you that, especially when you've got cars such as this one, when you've got cars that you're trying to do drift events with, it's just not really entertaining. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem, and the manual gearbox hasn't gone any way to solving that one. It is still a bigger an issue now as it was to begin with. And then we have the world. It is a dreary, dreary world, this one. Whoopsie, didn't quite mean to do that game, never mind. Yeah, this is just not a place that I want to spend time in. Now, there are other games that have had slightly dodgy handling physics. I can think of Test Drive Unlimited 2 and The Crew. They are both games that don't have the best handling. Admittedly, they're better than this one, however, they don't have the best handling physics. However, I still like the games because the worlds are fantastic. You know, the Test Drive, you've got Hawaii and Ibiza to go exploring. You can put the car wherever you want. The sense of ownership as well with the vehicles and the dealerships around there is fantastic. It's a great, great game, even with the less than ideal handling physics. The same could be said about The Crew as well. The Crew handling has improved with the kind of the wild run and so on. They got better. It's still not the greatest handling physics, but again, the world is a great place to explore. It's a great place to go for a road trip across the United States. And this game is just miserable. Really, it's just not. It's not a place that I want to spend time. Again, I've been playing the old racing, the old tuning games, like Need for Speed Underground 2, Juiced, and all those sort of things. They've just got much more exciting worlds to be going adventuring around. I would much rather spend time in them. Not only they got better worlds, they got better driving physics as well than this game. Yes, it is a fantastically pretty game, Need for Speed. You know, it has got some great graphics, but aside from the cars looking all shiny, the rest of it is just dull. It's just not a fun place to be in. And that is quite a hindrance to the game, because it can't fall back on having an exciting world. And, you know, to be fair to The Crew and even Test Drive, they have better driving than this game. Yeah, they've got much more fun worlds to go exploring, so why would I be spending my time on here? Well, the main selling point behind Need for Speed was the car customization. So if that is to save the game, it would have to be really rather spectacular. If I can remember the right buttons, is always helpful. Now, initially, I wasn't particularly inspired by it. I mean, it's better than Forza. Let's start by saying that, you know, yeah, it's going to be better than Forza or Gran Turismo, etc. That's a given because this is actually, you know, about customizing the cars. Thing is, it still doesn't really blow me away when it comes to the options. Again, it has been improved. Vehicles, there are more options for some of the vehicles. Take this Volvo, for example. If you do want the 242, you can now actually modify it, as we see here on my one. You can actually have, you know, some options on the vehicle. At kind of release, there were quite a few cars that had just bugger all you could do with them. And if you're not going to bother, you know, if you're not going to have options to modify the cars, what's the bloody point in having them in the game in the first place? It was very much a case of you'd better like certain cars if you actually want to do anything with them. You know, it is better. It is better than it was. You know, for now we've got, well, for example, sorry, we've got here, you know, you've got different kind of splitters, the front bumper, there's kind of chrome or not chrome kind of bit on it. We can have rally lights, or there are a couple of other options as well for this one. That's the standard one, sorry, going the wrong way. You can have taped up ones, you can have intakes and so on. There is a bit more options on this car, a fair few more options on the Volvo, which is good. I think as far as body kits go, we've kind of got... Actually, it's not got to change because I've got fenders and so on the car. Yeah, there is a little bit more in the way of parts. Thing is, again, comparing it to these old shooting games, it's nothing special. Okay, yes, it does have up-to-date parts. When you compare, say, Midnight Club LA, I love Midnight Club LA, it's a fantastic game. Yeah, you know, some of the parts are quite dated, or Underground 2, Juiced, etc. Yeah, you know, those parts are dated, they look terrible compared to kind of modern stuff, but that's just because there was the style at the time. You know, Midnight Club had I can't remember what year Midnight Club came out in, probably like 2005, 6ish, maybe, I don't know, or LA anyway, maybe a little bit newer than that. But you know, there's quite a lot of years have passed since then, and this game doesn't really do a huge amount better in terms of kind of options on the vehicle. Certainly doesn't feel. And the likes of Juiced and RPM tuning, I've been playing a bit of that. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that game, but you know, they've got just as much in the way of customization, and in some aspects they do far better. Underground 2 and so on. Yeah, they look dated, but they do better in terms of options. this game has improved. Certainly, there's more parts. Things like this Volvo are actually modifiable, but it's still not. It's still not amazing, and it's certainly not enough to save the game when the other bits are so dodgy. So, yeah, at this stage, things are not looking particularly good for Need for Speed. One thing that has been added that is quite useful, they've now got I don't know quite what they call it, a sharing system for sharing of paint. Yep, it's quite a useful thing to have if you've got a vehicle and you want to download a paint, or you've done a really good paint and you want to share around. It's a good enough system. It does kind of remind me a little bit of the Midnight Club LA way of sharing paints and so on. It's a good feature to have in the game. Again, though, it's not enough to save the game. The paint editor is a little bit more clunky than Forza. It's not bad, as you can see on here. People can do some pretty impressive stuff if you want to, but it is just a little bit more clunky, a little bit less user friendly than the Forza system. You can do impressive stuff. I just don't have the time to faff about with it. So yeah, that's something that has been added that is quite neat. Now, there is one redeeming thing about these updates, and that would be this particular vehicle, the custom hot rod. This is by far and away the best driving car on this game. It actually handles like a car, which is fantastic. They have added a couple of iconic vehicles. You've got the Hoonicorn. It's a good fun vehicle to drive about. You can pretty much complete every single drift event you could ever want to in it. Does still have the wonky handling physics for when it's going sideways. They've added Eddie's Skyline as well. But all of that pales into insignificance in comparison to this thing. Now, as far as modifying the car goes, there's not a huge amount of options to it. No body parts, as far as I am aware. You can change the tyres. I don't believe they make any difference to the actual vehicle. You can have some rain tyres if you want, and you can change the wheels, I assume. Yeah, okay, you can. Oh, wow. That's your... Okay, well, there you go. Not very much in the way of options on the kind of visual side of things, and you can't fiddle around with the engine whatsoever. You can't give it any more power. You can't tune the car. Not that I would touch a thing, because, as I said, this is such a nice car to drive in comparison to everything else on this game. I completed the Eddie's challenges. I got through all of the racing ones. I got through first time with this car. That's how fast this vehicle is. The drifting stuff I did with the Hoonicorn, and I got through all of them first time as well. Between those two vehicles, you can do just about everything. And the reason why this car is so fast is it actually gets round a corner. The front end has got grip, which is glorious. The front end actually turns into a corner. It is so nice to have a car that will drive. Now, there is tuning options for these vehicles. You can, as I said, you can try and fiddle about with the setup. The RX-7 was a very drifty setup to compete in those sort of events, because I don't need a race car when I have this thing. If you tune them to have grip, or what the game reckons is grip, you just give them a million miles of understeer, and they don't get through corners, and if they try and go sideways, everything breaks. Whereas this thing actually gets turned in. The front end will go around a corner. It will handle like a proper car, the proper car should, and it's entertaining to drive. By far the most fun I've had on this game is competing in races, with this car, because it actually is a good vehicle. It's got good brakes, it's got good handling. It can go sideways if you want it to, and then things do go a little bit wrong with the physics, but never mind, because I don't put it that way. If it's going sideways, it's not going quite how I want things to be in here. So, yeah, I don't really worry about that too much, and it's the only vehicle that is good fun to drive. I'm sure there are assists going on within it, but because you're not having it wiggle about over the road doing stuff that you're not telling it to, it doesn't feel as badly kind of under the game's spell. It actually feels like I am driving this car myself. and it's fantastic. If all of the cars handled similarly to this, and perhaps you could tune them, or you could use that the little setup sliders to make them drifty if you wanted to. If all the actual if they were tuned for grip, they handled this well, I'd be saying a completely different things about this game. Completely different things about this one. But that isn't the case, sadly. This thing is just so much better than everything else in the game. Yeah, there are still the odd little bits of wonky handling that can go on from it, but most of the time it's not sliding, so yeah, we don't have the issues. There is a kind of slight downside to this vehicle in that it is so good, that it is so far overpowered in the races that there is now really no challenge to well, pretty much any of them. You can complete just about everything first time with this car, because that is just how incredibly fast the vehicle is. There are... I've completely and utterly lost my train of thought with this one. Yeah, there are sort of the odds slightly more challenging, and they have tinkered around with the AI some, so that the stupendous catch-up is no longer a thing, which means if you get yourself far out in the lead with this car, the AIs aren't going to magically teleport to your rear bumper. Although if you are in the lead, crash, and the AIs get in front of you, from my experience, they tend to just stop, let you catch up, and then when you're driving something like this, they don't stand a hope in hell, so you overtake them and never see them again during the race. Now, to be fair, that was only a couple of times. Most of the races, I'm so far ahead of them when I'm driving this car that it doesn't really matter if I bump a wall or have an accident, because it will respawn me and I'll still be so far ahead that, I'll be gone. It's, just take a little bit of the challenge out of it, but honestly, I would rather drive it like that and have an incredibly fun car to drive than, actually drive with the other vehicles and be hating the car, but have a challenge. That's just how much better this car is. It kind of makes me a little bit sad in some respects, because as I said, if all of the cars drove this well when they were tuned for, actually having grip, if they got turned through corners the way that they should, this wouldn't be too bad a game. It really wouldn't. The world would still be boring, but yeah, you could actually have some fun with the other vehicles. But yeah, they don't, and this is the car. Pretty much when you can afford to buy this and get the Hoonicorn, once you have those two cars, you don't need anything else to compete in the races. The Hoonicorn can do all of the drifting. This can easily do all of the races. The fact that you can't upgrade the engine and so on doesn't matter. It's still going to be so much faster than everything else because it knows how to corner. They're all the cars that you actually need, and the other vehicles you can just buy for fun, because these are so much faster, and so much nicer to drive than everything else. Now, as far as actual game modes added go, I did say Eddie's Challenge was a series of races. When you have a custom hot rod, they're not really a problem to get through them. Nothing different in those events. They have added drag races. Again, something that I'm surprised was not in there from the start, considering it is... oopsie, I didn't quite mean to do that one. Considering that it is pretty much a staple of racing, and it's, not exactly a complicated thing to do a drag race. They're fairly straightforward. Yeah, we do have drag races. I think there are 6, 7, maybe a little bit more than that. Again, there's some difference to them, but it's nothing, again, that hasn't been done before. You look at the Midnight Club games, they had races where it was just checkpoints, and you had to find your best route through the checkpoints. You could follow the AIs, you could try and make your own route up. That was interesting, that added some tactics into the mix. I was playing the first Juice game, that had a showboating one where you had to do various stunts and tricks, and different ones gave different points at different times during the events. This, it just doesn't try anything different, it doesn't try adding anything new to the kind of racing genre, if you like, which is, again, is a shame. And yeah, drag races are great and everything, but it's nothing different, and drag races aren't anything particularly spectacular either. Have I got any that I haven't done? Maybe I have done all of them. Maybe there aren't as many as I thought there was. Okay, shall we go find a hard? There we go. Let's see if we can how we manage with this one. Yeah, the Crew does drag racing better than this one does. It's yeah, okay, it's an improvement on what it was, but it's nothing that we haven't already seen before. So if we go to start the event, it does a little bit of a staging thing. Again, the crew did it with a little bit more detail. So we have to drive up to a little box. We spin the wheels for a little bit, and after a while, normally it's about a second, it will, okay, you can actually, wow, that's the first time I've overcooked the tyres. Normally you just sit there and burn the wheels out and then it'll be fine, and then you've got to match the little rev gauge in here, and then you're off. To be fair, that is actually slightly more in depth than I have seen beforehand, because most of the ones that I did, all the previous drag races I've done, I sat and spun the wheels for a second, it said they were perfect, and then it let me go and race. And that was it. On that one I actually managed to overheat. I have no idea how I managed to overheat them that time, considering I've done exactly the same thing with the previous ones, and that was cool with it. So, yeah, okay, maybe there is some slight depth to the drag races, and if you overcook the tyres, you have a smaller, kind of perfect launch rev range. It's drag racing. Okay, to be fair, that was actually, I forgot to use nitro as well. Yeah, didn't quite realise that you could overheat the tyres from previous experiences with the car. The crew did exactly the same thing, just as well as on here, if not a little bit better, because the crew had actually proper crazy, ridiculous, full-on, like 300-mile-an-hour drag cars, so yeah, it's better than it was, but again, we've seen it all done before, and when you have a hot rod, there is very little in the way of challenge. Again, this is a standard hot rod, essentially. Absolutely murdered the time down there. Drag race is a good way of making money, though. That's about, what, $8,000 for that drag race, so you could just spam that one out for a while to get money for the vehicles. Other slight improvements that we do have that I very nearly forgot to talk about. There is now more storage for your cars, which is, again, it's a good thing. It's better than it was. I still don't get why the game is so keen on limiting you to what vehicles you can have. It's just like an odd thing because it kills replayability. If I want to, you can have 10 cars now. You can have these lots up here, and if we go on here, you can move cars to the warehouse, and these are the vehicles that are sat in my warehouse. So yeah, it's double the amount of cars that you have. But why, in this day and age, are we still limiting ourselves to having 10 cars? Why can't we have more? I mean, sure, I understand why maybe not having 400 or 500 cars, but surely having enough to have at least one of each vehicle, if that's what you wanted, would make sense. Because once you've got the vehicles you like, that's it, you're done. Why would you bother playing any more of the game necessarily? I just find very odd decisions have been made with this game. They've kind of half-arsed rectified some of them, but it's still quite... yeah, they're still sort of shining through. So, yeah, I mean, the updates have improved the game. It's better than it was. It's still not particularly good. When I compare it to some of the classic games that I've been playing, they do everything just better than this one. Better handling, more interesting worlds, as good a customization. Yeah, they're old, the customization is dated, and the graphics aren't as good. But, yeah, they do stuff considerably better than here. The redeeming feature is this car. The custom hot rod is the redeeming feature of this update. I was these updates, I was fully ready to say that the game was still as crap as it was until I drove this car. And now I can't quite say it, because this is a good car. If all of these vehicles, if let's say in a sequel to this, I'm assuming they're probably going to make another one, if they have all of the vehicles handle more like this, when we want them to be set up for grip, and, don't have the assists, or don't have the game so eager to try and assist you in driving the car, then there is potential for a very good fun game, because this hot rod is great fun. It is great fun to drive. I've spent far too much time messing about with this one, and I'd be happy to just complete the entire game using just this car, because it's the only one that I actually enjoy driving. because yeah, the physics are still as dodgy. The manual gearbox helps a little bit with the odd moments, but it's not it is not really enough to save the wonky physics. The other thing that does still really annoy me, we'll get in the Mazda to show this one off. Just to finish, is you still can't spin the wheels on the cars. You still, okay, admittedly with the hot rod, yeah, you know, it's got giant slick racing tyres and so on. It's kind of designed to be a cross between a Formula 1 car and a hot rod. Can kind of perhaps understand that one there, having the grip to launch. But, what is this, 820 horsepower RX-7, or my 1,000 horsepower Viper on wet streets, you still can't spin the wheels. It just sums up how busy this game is trying to... that's also a dumb system as well. Launching you out in sort of full collision mode when other cars are launching from the same garage, but, you know, never mind. Yeah, you still can't. We're going to go first gear here. 800 horsepower Mazda. There's no wheel spin. And that's, again, it's just so busy taking control away from you in this game. Is the overriding theme, and while little bits have been improved, and the hot rod is a massive improvement, still it's not enough. It's not enough to forgive the rest of the flaws in here. So, yeah, there we go. That is pretty much my conclusion on Need for Speed 2015. A bit better. The hot rod is by far the best thing in the game. Just drive solely that car, and everything is good. The rest is, yeah, not a huge amount better. I certainly wouldn't be particularly recommending this game. I'm certainly not going to be going out and spending more money on it to get it on PC, because it's just not worth it. Maybe it'd be better with a steering wheel. I don't know if it does have all the wonky assists on PC if you're trying to drive it with a steering wheel. I don't know. I don't intend on wasting my money to try and find out. I can't believe there's no steering... I never realised there wasn't steering wheel support for consoles. That seems another just dumb decision with all of this. But yeah, there we go. That is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.